This is Life After Sports podcast. The theme is tonight is how coaches can impact lives of others. And so we always talk about our mission. Our mission is to educate, share perspectives, and also discuss the business aspects of the sports industry with former and current professional athletes. Tonight we have no other than our special guest, Frank Okam, on here, former NFL player, also the assistant D-line coach for the Carolina Panthers. And I appreciate you taking the time to be our special guest, especially on episode 5. So we appreciate you taking the time to get up on here and really share with our viewers your industry and what you've done over the years. And glad to have you on here. So as we get ready,
thank you for inviting me to do this. It's an honor to be part of your podcast and your show.
I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it. So before we get started, I always like to give our viewers a little bit of information about our podcast, and obviously this gives them an opportunity to get to know you as well. And starting with that, my first question is this: let's talk about your childhood. Let's talk about where you were born, where you were raised.
Yeah, I was born actually in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. My grandmother's from there. A lot of my family is still in that small city. It's actually gone down. It used to be the second largest city in Arkansas, but since then it's kind of population's kind of went a bit down. But I moved to Dallas, Texas when I was about 4 years old. So I was born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, raised in Dallas, Texas. Went to junior high, elementary, high school, all there in Dallas. So if someone asks me where I'm claiming D-Town.
Okay. Look, I just learned something new about you. I didn't know that. I didn't know. So, all right. So talking about, when did you start playing football?
My mom was not a big proponent of football. She thought it was a very physical sport and really didn't want me to play that sport. So I actually didn't get a chance to play until junior high. And that was really only because the high school or junior high football coach saw me and was like, bro, like, what are you doing with life? Like, you got to come play football. I thought I was going to be the next Shaq. Michael Jordan was my guy growing up. I was trying to shoot fadeaways. I really, really, really wanted to play basketball. So I didn't get to actually play football till the first time I was in junior high.
Wow. So just to roll back a little bit. So you didn't play you didn't play any, people play, I shouldn't even say Pee Wee football, but Little League football. You didn't play no Little League football, no tackle, none of that.
The closest I got to playing football as a kid was throw up tackle. So I didn't play any organized football, no peewee, no nothing. And honestly, even when I started to play in 7th grade, the first thing that ever happened to me was people was asking birth certificates. So, just when you're much bigger than everyone else, everyone's kind of curious about how old you really are.
Oh, yep. And look, I know that from AAU. I coached AAU for 1 or 2 years, and I had kids where people was like, look, I need to see their birth certificate. There's no way that they are 11 years old. Let me see that birth certificate.
No doubt.
So did you play any other sports?
Yeah, I was obviously a huge basketball fan. I played basketball all the way through high school. I started out in the field part. I actually used to run the hurdles in junior high up to about 10th grade until I just kind of got too big and really went fast enough to run with everybody else. But I used to run the 110 hurdles. I threw the shot and disc, and played the 4 and 5 in basketball.
Wow. So, and I know it's not a question that I have on here, but how tall were you as a freshman in high school? And what high school you went to?
I went to Lake Collins High School. It's up in North Dallas. We had the freshman center then, so it was supposed to be 9th grade only. But I was 6'4" in 9th grade. So between 9th grade and 12th grade, really since then I've only grown 1 more inch. But I was 6'4", coming in at 15 years old.
Wow. And I like your story because a lot of parents, we have parents on here as well who have young kids, and either their kids are playing or their kids are not playing. So it's different. I grew up in a household. My parents were like, you could play every other sport, but football is not one of those that you play.
Right.
So
football's been great for me though. So I guess I probably have a little bit different view after I watched how it's affected my life and what it's done for me.
Okay. So when did you notice? Because you said you played junior high. That's when you played. What grade were you in at that time? When you
7th grade.
Seventh grade. Okay. And so you played in junior high. You played at the high school, at the junior high school.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because here in South Florida, you can't. It's either you play Little League, but you don't play. It's not a school team that you play for. Because I know In Texas, it's totally different. Football is totally
Completely
different out
different.
there.
Yeah, completely different.
So you started playing in the seventh grade. When did you know, your capabilities at that particular time when you're like, you know what, I'm enjoying this. It's not just I'm enjoying it. It's fun, but I also can see the sky's the limit, in regards to talent and your learning. And, when did you know, like, hey, this may be something that I can actually continue to build with and make progress?
I'm always, and still am, very naturally competitive, and so that's something that's always driven me throughout my course of life. But I was, as a kid, probably very naive about football and recruiting process, and how you can get to college and do all those things. I played because I like to compete. I wanted to be good at whatever I did, and I remember after my freshman year, when they go to spring football, they brought me up to varsity to go into my sophomore year. I was very excited to do that. Didn't think that that was going to be a thing, because historically my high school had been a pretty good team, and didn't really bring up young guys until they were juniors. So I was happy to have a chance. And I remember the first time in the varsity locker room, I saw some seniors with like letters, and I was like, "Why do you guys have letters from schools? Like, why are they sending you letters?" And they were like, "To go to college." I mean, I was like, "To go to college and do what?" And they're like, "Like football." I was like, oh, "Okay, so how much do I got to pay?" They were like,
And they were looking at you like, hey, like, no, these are scholarships.
"These are scholarships." I was like, "What do you mean they're going to pay for you to go to school? And you got to be good?" And I was looking at that dude, I was like, "Oh, I definitely can be better than you." So I was just like, well, let me get serious about trying to do this and see how I can potentially, affect and change my life.
Wow, wow. So, talk about it, like when you were starting to get those senior year or whatever, you were starting to get those letters for to go play. How was that recruiting process as a junior, as a senior, when you started to get letters? Like, what was that feeling?
The first one, you're humbled, you're excited, you're happy that you may have a chance that, some school was even taking an interest in you, potentially, helping that program. So I was just, happy to even have a chance. And then, as I continued to get a little bit better, and then going in my junior year, everything kind of took off, really kind of went crazy. And, I went from not being that well known to being one of the top recruits in the country really fast. And so, for me, it became a little hectic, a little overwhelming. I'm not really a guy who loves a lot of attention, and truthfully, probably in hindsight, I probably didn't handle it the best. Back then, recruiting's completely different. You couldn't text a kid like you can now. There's no
Yeah.
social media, so they just had to call. So your phone was literally ringing off the hook all night, every night, all day, every day. So I was bad because I grew up with two sisters, and they probably, felt a way about the phone being hogged by college coaches trying to call the house all the time. But that was my reality for that period of time in my life.
Yeah. Now, and I know we're gonna get to this will be the ending of the question, but I'm definitely gonna ask, based on you coaching at the college level. Now that you were on the other end, how was it? But we'll get to that question a little bit later on. But let's talk about your days at University of Texas and why you chose that school. Like, talk about that recruiting process going there, and how was your, like, how did you end up making that decision?
You know what? I really enjoyed the fact when I went through the recruiting process. University of Texas was a big time school, big time program. Coach Brown at the time was the head coach there, and I went and did a football camp that summer, my junior summer, just to get in front of those coaches, and because they hadn't offered me yet.
Yeah,
And it was weird because people always ask you, "Oh, who's your top five schools?" And I never had Texas in my top five. And so
at
finally,
all.
I went down there one day, and Coach Brown was like, "Well, why aren't we in your top five?" And I was like, "You haven't offered me. I'm not going to put a school in my top five who hasn't given me a scholarship." And so he was like, "Oh no, we like to do those in person." And could have been a way to save face, but they offered me right there on the spot and said, "Well, are we in your top five now?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure." So
No, no pressure, no
no
pressure,
pressure.
Frank.
Yeah, but the thing that really sold me in the University of Texas was the players. I've got some friends that are going to be the best men at my wedding, groomsmen. People who had a huge impact on my life. And when I went there, the biggest thing I saw about the players at the University of Texas at the time is that we were all like-minded guys who were intrinsically motivated, wanted to bring football back to Texas, wanted to compete and go against the best and practice against the best so you can go be the best. And so just meeting those guys, seeing that we had the same kind of goals, same type of mentality, I thought it was just an easy fit. Plus, I wanted to be close to family. I didn't want to go that far away. My mom really wanted me to go to Stanford, actually, because of the education. And so I just figured at that time, I can get the best of both worlds academically and athletically.
Yeah. What was your five? You know, I have to ask, what was your five, though? What was your top five at that time?
You know, actually, my final five were Stanford, Texas, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and actually University of Florida. I took a visit to Florida. Really enjoyed my time there, and it was they made a strong push for me and what I wanted to do there.
Now, I know a lot of people that probably are following me, not following you, but they need to know this. You won a national championship in 2005 at University of Texas. So talk about, and you don't have to talk about maybe that particular year, but what the years that you were there. Talk about what was something that stood out to you that was a highlight of your career at University at UT.
You know, I can't even lie. When I first went to Texas, I was a little starstruck. You know, when at practice, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's Derek Johnson. Oh my gosh, that's Cedric Benson. Oh my gosh, that's Vince Young," and just kind of, you know, in awe of these guys who had kind of built this reputation of being some of the most talented players in college football. And, you know, meeting those guys and seeing how humble they worked and truthfully seeing how hard they worked, that was probably the biggest thing that, you know, opened my brain to what Texas at that time was all about. And it was about talented players trying to work their butts off to be the best they can be. And so that was something that, you know, everyone who's played this game and played in college football, they always tell you the memories, the locker room, the experiences, the time with your boys are some of your best memories. And that to me, that's still true. But, you know, winning a national championship against the greatest team of all time is something that, you know, I will be able to cherish for the rest of my life.
So, I mean, the camaraderie was probably the best thing in regards to just the locker room and those guys. Just being in that moment was probably the highlight of your career. Of course, we're in the national championship, but the highlight was just sharing those memories with those young brothers that you had at that particular time at UT.
Oh, no doubt. You know, that was something that was really, really awesome. You know, one of the quotes that Coach Brown has said has been played a little bit over and over. He challenged us to not let that be the best moment of our lives. You know, not let that be the highlight of your life. And I think that's something we all took personal. And, you know, we still talk to these days about trying to outdo each other in our real world and just keep challenging ourselves and pushing that envelope standard of what that team is and what that team can fully represent. You know, when it's all said and done, I would love for that team to be remembered as some of the guys who've had the greatest impact on the world.
Yeah. Okay. In the base of this, in this interview, we're going to go pre-career, we're going to talk about your in-career, and then we're going to talk about post-career. So we just finished pre-career. Now let's talk about a little bit about your career as an NFL player. While playing in the NFL, what coach has played an instrumental role in your career or in your life as a mentor? And I know you've played for a couple different teams, so I know it's a little bit to, you know, everybody probably gave you a little bit different here at this team. This person gave you a little bit here, but overall in your career playing, what one coach that has probably played a significant role in your life?
You know, as a player, I was fortunate enough to have teams continue to take chances on me, so I got to play for a lot of different teams. I actually had, you know, 7 defensive line coaches in 6 years there. But with the guys who probably, you know, made the biggest impact on me was my first head coach, Gary Kubiak. Coach Kubiak, who you know eventually won a Super Bowl with Denver, but you know he was a guy who really, really, really stressed the importance of practice to us. You know, is that when you're a really talented football player, you kind of tend to think practice doesn't matter as much. I can show up on game day, I can be a baller when it matters, and at that level, you're not really able to do that and be successful at an elite level. So for me, just the fact that Kubiak was able to reach out to a young guy, you know, from a different background and really try to drill home to me the importance of what it means to be a pro at that level. You know, I would say that he probably, you know, as a head coach, had the biggest impact on me. And you know, luckily for me, some of my D-line coaches were really good players. Like I had Keith Millard down in Tampa Bay, and Aaron Donald just broke his record for the most sacks by a defensive tackle because he had it for a year and a half by himself. And Dan Quinn, who was my D-line coach in Seattle, was the head coach of the Falcons now. All those guys had a chance to kind of really pour into me with the time I had with them and teach me at least that position, the defensive line, a little bit better.
Got you. So it leads to my next question. What was the most important thing that you've learned throughout your journey in the NFL? what kind of stood out throughout
You know,
the league at your
yeah.
time?
Coach Rule actually had me talk to the Panthers, the team, the other day, and I tried to stress the importance of some of the lessons I learned as a former football player. And for me, I think the biggest thing I truly learned is, sometimes as a player, you can be too goal oriented. And what I mean when I say that is you kind of look at the end of what you want to be. I want to be a gold jacket. I want to be all pro. I want to be a starter. I want to end up in the Hall of Fame. And when you're a goal oriented person, when you're trying to go along the path, you can kind of see that the goal's so far away that you may not take the steps you need on a day-to-day basis to reach that goal. And so for me, that was probably the biggest lessons I learned as a player, is that when your goal's so far off, you can kind of stress about it and not necessarily try to take control of the situation, because you're not in it on a day-to-day basis. You keep looking at something that's far off. Let's say you want to lose 50 pounds. Well, after you lose one, you're like, dang, I still got 49 to go. And that can kind of overwhelm you, instead of being what I call a process-oriented type player or person. And so when you do it like that, when you're a process person, you try to take it day by day, minute by minute, decision by decision. And so for me, that was probably the biggest challenge I tried to get my players. That's what I try to do as a coach as well now. But just basically saying, get rid of the goals. Don't worry about the goals. Let's focus on the process of you getting better slowly but surely. And if you do that, then don't lose sight of that process that you commit to, and you make that your brand, you make that your lifestyle, then you can look up one day and see what you've accomplished. And so that was the biggest thing that I learned from my career, because I don't think I did a great job of that. I personally actually think I underachieved in my career. And so I think part of the reason was because I didn't have the right mindset or mentality to attack each day as its own individual day, instead of trying to create all these huge goals and moments in one practice, instead of just, continue to stack it one day at a time, and trying to get that end goal really quick. You can't do it that way.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about football and you being in the league, but I think that's very applicable just to life in general. I mean, a lot of us have these goals, but we don't understand that there's a process to them. And there's some failure that comes along with reaching those goals. So what if you don't maybe attain all those goals? Are you a failure? No. Everybody's road to success is just different. And so I truly agree with you on that. And I've learned in my personal life, in regards to the goals and things that I've set, is to understand the process. And if I fall in love with the process, the end result will take care of itself.
No doubt.
And so I totally agree with that comment. And I hope for the listeners that are paying attention to this, that they understand that, because we all write down lofty goals. We do. Some people attain them, some people don't. Some people are great at executing, and some people are great at just writing. And so if you're going to be great at just writing, you need to figure out, what is it to be great at maybe just learning to love the process. And the process be ugly sometimes, and it's okay.
Yeah. Definitely.
It is okay with that. My next question for you is, while playing in the NFL, did you inspire to be a coach after you retired from the game? Like, was that something that maybe transpired in your mind at any point in your career? Like, what I'm probably going to want to do after I'm done?
Absolutely not. Like I said, I have very lofty goals. I wanted to be able to retire from being a great player in the NFL and make millions of dollars and choose to do whatever I wanted to do in life. And that really didn't occur for me. And that doesn't occur for every player. I mean, the average NFL career is less than 4 years. And so, unless you're a really, really high draft pick, you're going to have to find something else to do. And for me, as I was trying to go through that process, the end of my career was just convoluted, and it wasn't clear on, if I had a chance to continue to play or not, or what I really wanted to do next. And so that period of time, that 27, 28-year-old time for me, I was really trying to find myself. And I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I wasn't sure at all what that was going to be for myself. And truthfully, coaching was not on my brain at all.
Yeah. I mean, prior to, and you were the fifth round.
Fifth round, yeah.
Fifth round in the NFL draft. And I think to myself, a lot of times when guys are going through the draft, we just had the draft maybe, a month ago or so, like that, month and a half, month ago. A lot of guys who maybe didn't get drafted in the first, second, or third round still have the hopes of, maybe I'm maybe going to be undrafted and I'm going to go and try out, and we'll figure out where this goes. Do you think sometimes it's harder to concentrate on other things, like, okay, if I don't get drafted, I need to figure out go back to school and finish, or whatever that next phase may be? Do you think it's very hard when you've been competing and you've been playing, you got a scholarship, you're playing at the college level at a high intense level. When does that certainty kicks in where it's like, I may not get drafted, so I have to figure it out, but I'm still going to go ahead and I'm going to put my name in the hat. If it happens, it happens. I've had guys on here that was undrafted and been lucky enough to maybe to win an NFL championship. But uncertainty, you talk a little bit about that, like, you know, your process when you were getting drafted and what was your mind?
Yeah, I'll talk. So for me, you know, I actually tried to be a guy that prepared for everything. I never tried to live my life like an assumption was going to happen. And so for me, I actually prepared and took a LSAT course in the summer and took the LSAT for that summer before I got drafted, because I was like, you know what? If I blow my knee out my senior year of college and I can't never play football again, I want to be able to have a chance to do something. So took the LSAT, took the course. You know, you can keep that score for 8 years. It was good enough that I could get into law school somewhere if football didn't work out. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't put all my eggs in one basket, you know, but you also hear people say, you know, plan B is plan A. Like you better, you know, focus on keep the main thing the main thing. And so for guys who are in that situation, and like for myself, I was projected to be a first round pick coming out my senior year, you know, rated third D tackle overall. And, you know, through that process, I talked to my agent, I talked to people, and that wasn't looking like it was going to be the case. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to be a first round pick. And you actually get to the draft, you see first, second, third, and fourth round go by. You're like, sheesh, like, you know, you don't know anymore. There's somebody else making a decision. And that's a tough, you know, pill to swallow, tough thing to deal with that. Luckily, I was picked in the 5th round and, you know, had a chance to try to chase that career. But I will always tell players, if you really think you're good enough, you got to give yourself 2 years. 2 years of failing and, you know, getting cut and not making teams and somebody not wanting to take a chance. If you can commit to something for 2 years, then you know you gave it your best shot. Because if you only do 1 year and you get out or try to go one time and it's over, then, you know, unless you have some kind of great job waiting for you, like you can be an engineer or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you're really committed to playing sports and playing the NFL, you need to give yourself 2 years before you feel like they kick me out the door.
Yeah. And I think you answered the next question, which was just talking about when did you realize that the transition process was happening for you for life after sports? When did you answered it maybe a little bit, but when did you, within your career, when did you notice that, all right, Frank, I got to start really thinking about life after
I had a huge come to Jesus moment. I was with the Giants in 2013 and they cut me. And I wouldn't try it out for the Seahawks. Murdered the workout. I'm thinking there's no way they're not going to sign me. When they did that, and they didn't sign me. They kept me overnight, kept me extra night. So usually when you stay one more night after, you know, a day workout, it's to go sign a contract.
Yeah.
Said, hey, we're going to get this guy on the practice squad who actually turned out being a great player for them. So it worked out for them one more chance. Next week I went to Tennessee, killed that workout, thinking, okay, they got to sign me. And they were like, hey, we'll send you back home. We'll call you later. So when I went back home to the plane, I was like, listen, I'm like literally in the best mental and physical shape of my life right now, and no one's signing me. So that was when I kind of had that moment of like, I need to figure out what the hell to do next. And so I tried to use that rest of that season. You know, I still did some more workouts and tryouts, but no one pulled the trigger. So I tried to use that time to go connect with people back in University of Texas and see what guys were doing professionally and see what kind of fit with my brain, my mentality, my mindset, and really try to, you know, figure out what was next. You know, my last tryout was for a playoff team in Cincinnati, and they were in the first round playoffs, and, you know, they went with somebody else. And that was the last time I went on a plane to go try to play for a football team. And that was January 2014. So after that, I was like, okay, well, what's next?
What's next? And you played in the league for what, eight years?
6.
6 years. Okay. And so just understanding that you've played in the league for 6 years, and then, you know, you're like, damn, I'm at my best shape, and nobody's really pulling the trigger. Now it's making you think like, okay, I need to figure out what that next phase was. So when you had that reality, like, what were some things that you were thinking in your mind? Like, what were some things? I know you talked about you went back to UT. How was your, you know, before you answer that question, how was your relationships? Because I think people want to know, like, you know, a lot of players may be going through this, and for them, you know, they may have different relationships when they were playing at that university, where they didn't talk to anybody, their mouth was closed, they just went out and played, they didn't think about anything else, or they didn't cultivate any relationships at that university.
Right.
And
I think you just said something that's really important for guys who are in college to realize is you don't want to go through college and just be a guy who checks boxes and then gets out and doesn't build relationships. Those relationships are the, fundamental piece of how everything you do in life, before, is going to affect your life. Whether that be from the academic advisors, whether that be from teammates, the walk-ons, the coaches, whoever it is. Those are the people that are going to help build your life, build that brand of what you want to represent and what you want to be. And, fortunately for me, I took care of my grades academically. I went to study hall. I did what I needed to do to graduate in 3.5 years. I didn't want to try to train and worry about doing school. So I try to take care of my school as much as possible. So when I went back, I was a guy that was a talented player for the University of Texas that, took care of his grades academically. So in a sense, maybe a model football player. And so when you go back, those people don't hesitate to try to help you out because they know what you sacrificed for yourself and for that school.
Yeah.
So I think that's important that one thing my mom always told me, and I tell my players all the time, you only get one name. You got to protect it at all costs. And so your name is your brand, and they'll walk in rooms way before you do. And so for those kids in college that are still trying to figure that out, like, oh, I want to be cool, I want to be this or that, and get rid of that mentality. Just do the things to build yourself up so when you get older, you can have options and choices of people that really want to help you out. But to kind of answer your question and follow through is when I went back, guys kept telling me, hey, you need another degree, in the work field.
No, hey, say that one more time. Say that one more time for people who ain't listening. You need what?
You need another degree. And so you just can't really walk in situations, the bachelor is kind of the new diploma now. And so, you kind of need something else to separate yourself to get into the field.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, saying that, because the next one was talking about the education. What's the education level that's needed to coach on the college level?
I'll tell you a quick funny story how I even got into coaching before I get in that, because that kind of all works together for me. After I realized I needed another degree, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was trying to look at all these different options. My good friend, Rod Wright, he was a student coach at Texas, and he was there with the transition from Mac Brown to Charlie Strong, and Charlie and his staff didn't keep him. And so he went on and luckily for him, got hired at Sam Houston State to be the defensive line coach there. But at the time, he was trying to go be the graduate assistant at Rice University. And for people who don't know what Rice is a school in Houston, Texas. They call it the Harvard of the South, really high academic, high premier liberal arts university, research university, and that plays Division I football in Conference USA. And so the head coach at the time was David Bailiff. The D-line coach at the time was Michael Slater, and they needed a defensive line GA. And it was going to be Rod because Rod had played for Michael Slater in high school. Luckily enough for me, he didn't have the same grades I did in college, and so he wasn't able to get into Rice. But I was, and I guess you can say the rest is history. So at the collegiate level, to get your foot in the door, you have, for a young coach, you either have to be a quality control coach or a graduate assistant or a GA. And a quality control coach is somebody who doesn't have to do school, and a graduate assistant is a guy who basically you don't really get paid because they pay you for school. Yeah. So, so for me, the good thing, I would say if you can get a master's, I think that always helps you because it makes you, when you're a GA, you basically get a dual master's. You get one in football and you get one in whatever your chosen profession is.
Okay. So, so you would recommend that for the college level, go ahead and get the master's.
I don't think it hurts you just because once you get a master's, if your coaching career doesn't take off and you don't get to do something, you can definitely always go back to high school A, but B, that degree will be able to work for you.
It'll work for you. Now, in regards to you on the professional level, so now that you're coaching at the Carolina Panthers and maybe from other coaches, is there they may not put it, I don't know if they're putting it in the contract, or is it something like underlined? Do you need a bachelor's? Do you need a master's at the professional level?
Yes and no. I think, like I said, a lot of this coaching profession is about reading what you've done, what you've done as a coach. It's all about what you maybe done as a player at this NFL level, because there are a lot of very former players who are really, really talented that have the ability to teach, and you may not need to go get a master's after you play 13 years. That kind of is your master's.
Yeah, that is your master's.
I like to just remind everyone that every situation is different and there's not one model to do it. But if you are a player or a kid who's young, fresh out of college, and want to go straight into coaching, I would try to do the GA route.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about your coaching experience at Rice University and then your coaching experience at Baylor. Let's start with Rice. Like, just give us the transition and, how did you told us how that opportunity happened, but let's talk about your experience and then, I know it was a high academic school. Let's talk about your experience in coaching those kids, those young adults.
I think, a funny story was when I got a chance to interview for the head coach, who was David Baylor for the time. I remember telling him, I was like, hey, coach, I'm going to do everything you asked me to do. There's no job that I won't do, but I really am here just to get the degree. And once I get the degree, I'm going to go in the real world and use this Rice degree for, something else. Yeah. And what I found, during that first spring of football is that, one, I was pretty good at it. Two, the players were getting a lot better at the techniques we were teaching. And three, Coach Baylor thought I was good at it. And so he kind of just felt like, hey, I know you want to just get this degree and get out and go into the real world and do your own thing, but maybe this is something you might want to consider for a career. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't really know. Like, it's coaching. Y'all got long hours. I don't really like that. Every reason why I didn't really want to do that job. But the players and the coaches you work with really will change your perspective on the profession. My mom's a teacher, and so I would say that she blessed me the ability to be able to reach and give back and reach people on a certain level. But the kids there, they were just so hungry, so eager, so willing to work, so willing to try to practice and do the techniques that you asked them. Didn't talk back. I mean, these are some of the brightest and most athletic kids in the country, because you have to be that to go to Rice University. Yeah. And just seeing their commitment to the process of trying to get better. Working for a man who took a chance on me like David Baylor, who was a humble head coach. Still tough enough to tell you exactly how it is, but humble enough that he'll do anything for any player, and that's still the way he is today. And so, working at Rice built the foundation of who I am as a coach, because it's a university that maybe is not as well funded as some of the Power 5 schools. So you have to be creative as a coach. It takes you outside the box. It makes you think of different ways to complete things that you want those players to show up on game day. So it forced you to grow. It forced you to do a lot of other jobs that you may not do at the Power 5 schools, because, you had to wear a lot of hats to make that football program grow. And that was something that was, I think, definitely beneficial for me as a young coach trying to figure out how to do that professionally the right
way. And I'm listening to your experience and thinking about mine. I was a assistant coach at the age of 22, and I didn't play professional sports at any given day. But after I finished my college career, I went into coaching. And to think about it, people don't understand the time, the dedication as a coach, even if you're an assistant or you're a head coach, long hours, and you're really like you're not their parent, but you're really like a psychologist for these kids, because they're dealing with so much, like the time that they got to be in school, then the time that you're asking them to come and dedicate to practice, and not to physically be here, but to mentally be here. And it's a lot. They're doing more than what students who just go to college do their schoolwork and go home. And I think people don't really understand, like, being a student athlete is a student first and an athlete second, but it's a lot. And it doesn't matter what institution that you're at. We're asking and demanding them a lot. And coaches enough. We may have 1 or 2 degrees, but I feel like when you're done, you got a PhD in psychology.
Oh, for sure. You'll deal with a lot of different kids from a lot of different backgrounds, and that's the great thing about sports. Whether the kid's rich and the kid's poor, the kid it has mental a different way he views the world versus a guy who you can say something to him one time and it makes complete sense. You're going to meet everybody on a whole different spectrum on a day-to-day basis, and your job as a coach is to make sure that person can communicate, feel comfortable communicating, and execute what you're asking them on a day-to-day basis. So it's going to challenge you to be different. Yeah. One thing I always tell my guys is I'm not going to treat everyone the same, because you just can't. Everyone's different.
Everybody's different, and their learning process is different as well. Everybody doesn't learn like I can't scream and shout and curse at you. That might not make you it won't motivate you to do what you need to do on game day. It may work for player B, but not for player A. And so as a coach, that's why I say PhD in psychology, because I got to figure out how your mind works, because you may work different than this player. And then with football, you guys are dealing with a lot. For me, I was coaching, I was dealing with 15 players. So it's just totally different. Talk about your experience at Baylor University as well.
I think obviously Coach Rule is one of the top coaches in the country, in my opinion. And I was very fortunate to get a chance to work with Coach Rule. And I think the thing that separates him from a lot of guys in this profession is his willingness to think outside the box, willingness to change. The coaching profession, especially for football, we have a tendency to rely on what we've been told and rely on what we know and consistently do the same things over and over because it breeds success. So it really takes a different mindset to be willing to constantly observe yourself and be critical of yourself, be critical of your staff, make people uncomfortable, make people enjoy being uncomfortable and look in the mirror and continue to grow as a coach. That is probably the biggest lesson I've learned from working with Matt Rule, is just being able to get comfortable with criticism, and not look at it as an attack on my character or as a person, as a man.
Absolutely.
Really is a chance for you to evaluate where you are and where you want to be. If you're talking about being a process-oriented player, you definitely have to have that as a coach, and criticism is one of the ways that you continue to grow. And so being able to work with Coach Rule, he kind of, I would say, opened my brain up to that philosophy. There are no assumptions. You don't get to assume that, I played in the NFL, so I'm good enough. You don't get to have the assumption of, this player is good enough, so he'll be good enough next year. It just basically, if you stay in that constant level of uncomfortableness or that constant level of trying to challenge yourself, that's where the true growth is. And that's where I think he tries to live as a head coach. And I've been able to see that, and I try to model that as well.
Okay. So let's talk about the recruiting process. All right. So totally different when you were playing for University of Texas and being recruited. Social media wasn't the way it is today.
For sure.
Right? Players have their own phone now. You're not calling the house phone. Now, so let's talk about the recruiting process from back then to the recruiting process now, when you were a college coach at that particular time. Well, how has it changed?
It's at the end of the day, it's about building relationships. So I think that part is constant. The way you build the relationships is what's different to me. When you're talking about the old school day, it was phone calls. It was letters in the mail. Like you came home to 8 letters in the mailbox. You had to go fill out questionnaires manually, telling the coach who you are, because, Minnesota may not fly down to Texas to come see you. They may not send somebody from Ohio State or Penn State to fly down to Texas to come see a player. So what you say on those scholarships may determine if someone shows up to see you. I think the Rivals program, it wasn't even they didn't have Huddle back then, so it was just Rivals, where they did the little highlight tapes. It was just kind of starting to take off, where people can watch somebody else from a different state. That's why kids really stayed local back in the day, because they, A, weren't traveling to go that far, and B, it was like, well, I got a good enough school close by, I don't need to leave. Right. So that was one of the biggest differences in why it was so regional, back when I was a player, because USC wasn't going to come down to Texas really to come see me. So it was just, I can go recruit California where the great players are, and if I dominate California, I can still be a great program. And that was kind of the philosophy you saw in recruiting. Whereas now, with the ability to watch anyone's film at any time on your phone, as a coach, you're exposed to so many more athletes, so many more players. Players are able to put themselves out there even more. I can get on Twitter to DM a kid can text me. Kid can hit you up on Instagram. You have so many different ways of social media and actual phone to connect with each other, that you're in a situation now where, I still can send the letters. I can still get that kid face to face, but it's probably going to be a little easier to get him on campus because I've reached out to him in 3 different mediums to build a relationship. So I think that was the biggest difference of being able to text, call, or DM. However you're going to reach that kid. I didn't have all those things when I was coming out.
At all.
If I didn't feel like answering the phone that day, you was hit. You're not going to be able to reach me. And if I didn't,
it's true.
I didn't open that letter in the mail, then I don't know what you said that day.
I didn't know that you said that. Yeah.
So that's I think the huge difference. And kids these days, they still ignore you. They can leave you on red. So
coaches can't see that.
A tougher skin as a coach now than you did back in the day, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I learned in my coaching, in me coaching women's basketball on a college level, you can't take it personal. It's a business, and
Correct.
so they got to make the decision that's best for their family and that's a benefit to them. Um, Us on the other end as coaches, we just got to make sure that we're doing our best job to put our best foot forward to let them know that we are interested in them. So um, I know I was just looking through one of the comments. Was mentioned about scholarships are on a year-to-year basis. So players have to be, I don't know what it was in 2005 or when you were playing at UT, if it was, okay, we sign you for a scholarship, it's 4 years, or, because I know now when you do you do your LOI, it's a year by year, you
Yeah,
know?
so every program is a little bit different. I think at Texas we were year to year,
Okay.
but I don't. When I say year to year, I think we had to sign something every year. But Coach
Yeah,
Brown said, "Hey, if you choose us, we're choosing you," kind of deal. So
correct.
I think legally back then they could do that. I think schools have a choice now. I know at Baylor we definitely said that you were a 4-year deal. Like we're committed
Yeah,
to you. You sign with us. This is not a hey, you had one bad year and you're out. That's
and you're
illegal
out.
anyway. But
Yeah,
yeah, for the most part, every college has the option to be year to year to protect themselves and the player.
yeah. So I think now it gives the players the opportunity. I mean, I know that transfer portal is crazy these days. You know, there was no transfer portal back in the days. Today they have one, and it's when season is over, kids that don't want to be back in the institution, they're back in that transfer portal and letting coaches know, hey, I'm free. I'm a free agent. Come get me. And it's just, you look at it in the league, we see it. Being a free agent, you get that. Okay, well now teams want to pick you. Now it's like that in college, and it's a big frenzy, you know what I'm saying, in regards to players who just don't feel that they fit the system, and they made a decision to be at that school for that year, and they just feel like, hey, I'm not it, or it's a new coach, new regime that came in, and that wasn't the person that recruited them.
Right.
So I know with all those different things, that I think now it gives the players a little bit of power. If you agree with me in regards to that.
Yeah, I think the pulse of college football is shifting to where it's more player friendly, of course, and I think that's they'll have to figure out how to cycle through these changes that they want to make to keep this game the way it is. But I think it's important that people have the ability to have choice. I think trying to figure out what system works best for you. I think trying to figure out what school and university is best for you. I always tell people all the time, don't pick a school for the football program. You need
Yeah,
to pick a school because you feel like this is going to be a program that can help me professionally in whatever I choose to do. If you think I'm going to be a professional football player, you're still going to have to figure something else to do in life because unless you're Tom Brady, who's playing at 40, I mean, the average, like I said, is 3 years. You're going to be 25 looking for something else to do.
and those years come by quick. Let them know, Frank, it comes by quick.
Yeah, it does come back quick.
So my next question is to talk about, man, and congratulations on your new journey as an assistant D-line coach for the Carolina Panthers. I'm
Thank you.
excited for you, but I also want to talk about, like, how you feel about this new journey as being a coach in the NFL.
Every time you go to a different level, especially when you've been fortunate to be a player at every level, being as a coach, you're on the other side of it. And so I always try to remember, what it feels like when you are a player, how it feels to be coached, what words affect you, what things you say. But for me personally, I'm obviously grateful that Coach Will thought enough to bring me with him. I'm grateful to have a chance to work with a very, very sharp and intelligent defensive coordinator, Coach Snow, who's done a lot to help me grow my game. Because ultimately I do want to be a DC and head coach one day, working under a great D-line coach in Mike Ferry, who's had a lot of success in this league. So I'm working with a staff that to me has true balance, racially, age, diverse backgrounds. So to me, when you're a player on the Carolina Panthers, you're going to have a chance to meet a variety of different coaches, a lot of different backgrounds that can reach you in a myriad of ways. And I think that's important when you're trying to build a new program, a new franchise, a new mentality, a new brand. And so for me, this has just been something that I don't want to take for granted. It's something I'm very grateful for, something I really appreciate. And just being able to, watch this kind of go from the ground up. I think this information that I'll learn through these first few years is just going to be truly and just immensely valuable.
Well, I mean, look, I'm happy. I'm excited for your new journey, man. Like, I mean, you showed your career playing in the NFL, and then what you've done after that, coaching these young men with these two different programs at Rice and then at Baylor, and now you're on the NFL on a big stage. And so look, I think you're destined for the greatness. You're gonna make it happen, and I'm proud of you taking this next step. And I appreciate you even taking the time to come on here and share your story. You know, how coaches can impact lives, and I'm pretty sure the coaches that you had along the way, from at the university level, from playing at junior high, high school, university level, and then college, that there's been coaches who have impacted your life tremendously. If there's one thing that you could be able to leave with our viewers, some may be playing high school, some may be in college, some may be former NFL players. What advice would you give to a current college player right now that's in the league? Like, what if you had to give an advice, because you've been a college coach for years? So what advice would you be able to give to one of our viewers?
I definitely want to take time to thank all the coaches who've been in my life, whether that's a coworker or someone who's actually coached me from high school to college to professional level. Because I grew up without my father, and so those guys kind of really filled in the role of being father figures for me. And I think for the most part, when I look back at those relationships that were built, those guys really imparted a lot of wisdom and time and energy and effort into my career and my life and my success. So if you're a coach, I think that the best wisdom I can leave you with is continue to do it for the right reasons. Continue to try to impart wisdom and try to change lives and allow people to reach their full potential. If you can just make a man the best version of himself, you make him a better father, a better husband, a better brother, a better coworker, and those relationships will impact everyone else exponentially around the world. But if you're a player and you're trying to figure out, how do I do this college thing the right way? How do I become a player? You got to remember why you're doing it. For me, I think it's, if you're a player trying to figure out what you want from the game, what are you trying to accomplish? If you set these goals for yourself, what process, what sacrifice, what am I willing to give up to make those things happen? It's very, very easy to set a goal, but a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I actually stole that from Coach Rule. But but at the end of the day, if you're a kid and you're trying to figure out, how do I accomplish anything, how do I be great at anything, it takes time, it takes work, and it takes effort. So at the end of the day, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to put in? And once you find that goal, once you find that process, once you choose that commitment, stay on the path. Stay on the path, and don't allow failure to make sure that you get off that path. That failure is a part of the learning process. That's part of your growth. The criticism you get, that's part of your growth. All the negativity that you could potentially hear, that's part of your growth. The biggest thing I could tell a player, though, because I had to deal with this as well, is most players understand when they see failure and experience criticism and how that can affect them. You always hear about people having a chip on their shoulder. It's also just as important on how you handle success. A lot of players can have success and become great players and then become complacent. Fight that complacency. Fight that urge to relax. Fight that urge to think, oh, this is how I've done it, and I can continue to do it this way. There is somebody always chasing at the bit for you. There's always somebody trying to take over what you represent and take over the brand that you're building.
Absolutely.
Chasing Jordan. Kobe was chasing Jordan. Jordan was chasing Bird and Magic. Like, somebody always trying to take over for who you are.
Yeah.
Well, even for me, I'm a coach. I'm trying to chase Coach Snow. I want to be a great head coach one day. So,
yeah.
At the same time, whatever that is, like, know that somebody's trying to take your spot, and don't allow that success, the growth that you're having, define where you are, because that's as far as you'll go.
Yeah. So look, that word right there, fight that complacency. I'm taking that with me. Fight that complacency. It's really important, especially with this whole pandemic that's going on for our whole world. We're trying to adjust to this whole new norm, and so a lot of people are home. They may not be, they may be soaking in, like, not really doing anything because they don't know what's the next thing to do. For me, I took this time in this whole pandemic to go ahead and worked on my goals to make sure that I could be able to accomplish some things that need to be accomplished, because I didn't have the time to do it with work and those other things. So that one stuck out to me. Fight that complacency. So I appreciate that gem.
Yeah. One last part I just want to say, I see some of the comments, and a good woman is something that's going to be very important to help her support.
That's Mama Rogers.
Yeah, a good family is somebody that's definitely going to help you support. You just need the relationships you build in life, whether that's your best friend, your wife, fiance, girlfriend, sister, brother, whoever those people are in your life, man. no one makes it anywhere in life by themselves. And I
Absolutely.
believe that. And so it's really important that as you try to go through these things in life, that your foundation keeps you supported. Because when you fall, you want to make sure you're following everybody else with you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's Mama Rogers. I appreciate your support. I know we had a couple people not with questions, but they were just based on our conversation. They were just giving us statements. But I appreciate everybody tuning in and giving their input. Again, look, I just want to say thank you for your time. I know we have a couple minutes left, but I appreciate your time that you were able to share your experience. Is there anything else that you want to say before we get off?
Thanks for me putting on your show. Thanks for putting me on your show. And I really appreciate you taking the time to give me a chance to share my story.
I appreciate that. I really do. I really do. So again, look, Life After Sports. This was episode 5. I appreciate having Frank Okam on the show. Congrats on your new career and your new endeavors. I wish you all the best this year with Carolina Panthers. And definitely, I'll be out there. I had to come out there and support you now, so I'll let you know when I'm on my way. But
I
I
appreciate
appreciate you taking the time, my brother. Have a good night, and I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. You too.
All right, take care. Thanks again.
All right, bye.